everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of DEI After 5. So, this week has been pretty interesting. I had a call yesterday, and someone asked me this question that really made me pause. And so the question was like, what is the future of this work? What is the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion? What is the future of, all of these things? And if you've been listening to me for the last, few months, last year, whatever, I've always said that this work is not going away. The letters may change, the letters may go away, but the actual work, the outcomes are not going to change because we as people, we as humans are diverse. We want to be inclusive. We want all of these things. For the most part, most of us want these things. And so it really made me think about a conversation, actually, two conversations that I've had with clients this week. And when I step back and think about what each one of them were asking was pretty similar. And, organizations are not looking for workshops anymore. They're not looking for these one off trainings anymore, which was a lot of what came out of the DEI work in many organizations and in many situations. What they're looking for is how do we fix our culture? How do we rebuild trust? How do we, mend some of the harm that may have been done? And so that's a deeper level of work. And so I've really been thinking about, what it is I've been doing, the conversations, the work that I've been doing with some of these clients, the work around psychological safety. And it made me think about, what is it that people really want? How do you create these environments? And so I took some time and I thought about, what was the end goal for DEI? Right, more representation, and making sure that people felt valued, seen, heard, connected to where they were, and people had the resources and tools that they needed in order to be successful. And so I was like, okay, let me take away the letters, let me look at the end result, let me add in some psychological safety, what I talk about around creating psychological safety and what is needed in those spaces. And I came up with, what I've been calling the 5 elements that create a culture of care, right? We want these environments to be one that we care about the people that work with us. We want to support and value them. We want to provide them with the tools and resources that they need in order to be successful. And we're not looking at them as just a cog in the wheel, right? We're not looking at them as just making sure that the tasks get done. We're going beyond that. And that is what employees are looking for. That is what I think organizations are striving for now. And so I wanted to share with you what I feel are those 5 elements. And each one is kind of doubled up. So it's really 10 pieces to this, but I have them grouped in a way that I think makes sense. And so the first is trust and transparency. If you have attended any of my workshops or any of my sessions around psychological safety, you have heard me say that if trust is not there, if trust is broken, there is no psychological safety. And so when I think of creating this culture of care, trust and transparency are paramount. People want to know that they can trust leadership, that they can trust the organization, they trust their colleagues, they trust that the work that they are doing is valued. They also want transparency. They want to know why decisions are being made. They want communication to be reciprocal, right? They want to be able to provide feedback, but they also want to know, okay, do I have all of the information that I need in order to move forward? And so you want to be able to build an organization that puts forth clarity and credibility as a key component, as key components in that trust and that transparency. The second thing is respect and recognition. And again, if you've listened to anything that I've said over the years, I always talk about respect. And that too is a two-way street. Do I respect you and the things that you do? And do I feel that I'm being respected, right? Am I being valued in all of this work? Do I feel as if there's a relationship there where respect is the top of the list? Recognition. This is one, and I actually did a webinar on this earlier this week. And what came out of that was in the recognition piece, we as a culture, especially in the United States, we are one that we are all about checking the boxes, right? Let's just get our to-do list done. Let's go through all of these things. Where do we take the moments to pause and actually recognize the folks that have helped us accomplish those goals, big or small, right? When do we take the time to do that? When do we acknowledge, you know what, we did a good job on this? Let's pat ourselves on the back. Just take a moment to be recognized in this moment. And even if something goes wrong, we talked about on the webinar the other night, where we're always constantly pivoting, and so good work is often done, but then when a pivot happens, we kind of forget about the good work that's been done and focus on, okay, this is the next phase, this is what we need to do now. How do you acknowledge those that did the good work, and so that they don't feel that that work has been done in vain? How can we reuse some of what they've done or repurpose it in a different way, in a different project? And so making sure that people take the time to feel that they are being recognized, the work that they're doing is being recognized. And it can be a small thing, right? I shared the story of having worked with someone who loved just putting like a little flower in a note just to say thank you to people, big or small, again, on certain things. And that was her way of providing just a token of appreciation and recognition for helping her get her job done on a regular basis. And so that's one, that's a cutesy one, but you could do it in a way that feels meaningful to you, but then also could feel meaningful to the folks that you're working with. And again, this can be your peers, this can be those that, work in levels above you, or even those that are in levels below. So making sure that you take the time to recognize people, I think, is something that we'll start to see more of, and it needs to be more meaningful and not just checking the box. The next one is belonging and inclusion. Y'all, this is not going away. Regardless of what words are being flagged, what initiatives are being taken away, people still want to feel that they belong. People still want to feel that they are included. That will never go away. And so, regardless of letters and acronyms and all of those things, what are you as a leader? What are you as an organization doing to ensure that people feel that they belong there, right? That they are a part. They are just not a widget, right, in the whole machine, but they are a critical part of getting the work done, and helping to create the culture there. And so it's creating a space where all voices matter, right, regardless of where they are in the organization. I often talk about how are people being acknowledged, or how are people's voices being heard, even if they're not at the table, right? How are we advocating for those that may not have a seat at the table or may not even be in the room? Making sure that those voices are heard as well. And how can we be the conduits for that, right? So making sure that people are feeling that they are seen and heard and connected and belong and are included, as part of the process. And a big piece of that, and this is something that I'm working with a couple of clients on now, is how do you ensure that people are giving their input in a way that is meaningful and people are actually listening. The decision makers are actually listening to that input and not just going in one ear and out the other. So I think this is one that, again, will never go away. The next elements are support and accountability, right? How are you providing support to individuals? And that could be empathy, understanding kind of where someone is coming from. What are the factors that might be influencing how they are responding or how they're showing up? Making sure that you create space for people to be able to explore new opportunities, new ideas, supporting that, and making sure that that is protected space. And accountability is the other piece of that. And again, if you've listened to anything that I've said around accountability, US culture, and I'll put it that way, and there are probably other cultures, but this is where I am based. We often think of accountability as a negative thing. and it doesn't have to be. And so, how do we hold someone accountable in a way where there's a lesson learned and the outcome is in a much more positive way? I think that we have this punitive mindset when it comes to holding people accountable, and we try to avoid the negativity of that. And so that's what hinders us from being able to hold someone accountable. And so creating clear expectations, right? Creating opportunities for people to pivot if necessary, but if there are deadlines, these are the deadlines, and also explaining the why behind the deadlines, right? So that they see that their work is part of a bigger process, right? So it's the deadline just because it is, but understanding the why behind that, and then holding people accountable to those deadlines. Big part of that is communication, right? How are we making sure that we're on task? What is it that you need? So again, that's the support piece of it. Will you be able to meet this deadline? How can I help you? How can I best support you? And making sure that you can get this task done. And so part of that too is that human element of really making sure that people are seen and as people and humans within the work versus just getting tasks done and accomplished. So that's another element of creating this culture of care. And then the last one I think is critical, and I think was a part of the DEI work that had always been done, but it was not necessarily articulated in this way. And this is making sure that people have a voice and that they're empowered. Now, I will caveat that by saying this is not a voice to just be able to say and do anything that you want to do and say. No, there's also a code of conduct within the workplace. There are rules and regulations and parameters within the workplace. This is more around making sure that when people have ideas or thoughts or they want to contribute, that they have a platform to do so. They do not have to bite their tongues or not be able to say something because of where they are in the organization. Everyone should have a voice, and everyone should have an opportunity to be able to speak up and share their thoughts and ideas, even if it's in left field. It's how are we going to ensure that they continue to use that voice? And how do we empower people? So it's making sure that people feel that they are safe to contribute in meaningful ways, regardless of where they are in the organization. And so a lot of that ties into the psychological safety work, but it's how are we providing the resources into tools and support for people to feel they have a voice and are empowered to use that voice. And so that can happen in so many different ways. So I wanted to share those things with you all today because I really feel that this is going to be the future of this work. This is what you're going to start to see more of. I'm starting to see more of is creating these cultures of care. Having leaders understand all of these elements and what that means and what that looks like. And it's a shift in mindset, honestly. It is a different type of leadership than we are probably have seen in the workplace. It is definitely a different type of leadership than I think that's being forced in many different ways from higher places. But it's not what humans and what individuals are looking for out of the workplace. They're looking for places that are cultures of care, right? Places that really are invested in the people. And so more and more you'll start to see, and I'm again starting to see more and more in this space of how do we create this? How do we do so in a meaningful way? How do we deepen this work? And how do we spend more time really focusing on providing these opportunities for us to build this culture in a way that will be sustainable? So this is not checking the box. This is not just a workshop. This is a truly shifting the culture of an organization so that it becomes one that is more inclusive, one that people feel that they belong, people have a voice, and that they are valued in the whole process. So that's what I wanted to share with you all this week. I hope you were able to walk away with a few nuggets. As always, feel free to reach out to me directly if you want to learn more about creating a culture of care or anything else that I do when it comes to psychological safety in the workplace. You can always find me on our website and also find me on social media. So LinkedIn is probably where you'll find me the most, just Sacha Thompson there. And as always, you can tune in to DEI After 5 every week for more information, more guidance, more support. And as always, until next time, have a good one. DEI After 5 is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. For more information, go to theleonthomasgroup.com.